China's trade deficit with the US is $295 billion. India's is 46. So China is about 6 times more than India, and tariffs on China are 30%. The deficit of European Union is $226 billion, which is 5 times more than India, and the tariffs there are 15%.
ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, ಟ್ರಂಪ್ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯಾರಿಫ್ ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಅವರು ಭಾರತದ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ತಳೆದಿರುವಂತಹ ನೀತಿಗಳ ಕುರಿತು ತುಂಬ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇದೀಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾರತದ ಉನ್ನತ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಜ್ಞರೊಬ್ಬರು ಟ್ರಂಪ್ ಅವರು ಹಾಕಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸುಂಕದ ಕುರಿತು ಮಾತನಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಸುಂಕವನ್ನು ಟ್ರಂಪ್ನವರ ಸುಂಕದ ದಾದಾಗಿರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಟ್ರಂಪ್ ಅವರು ಅನುಸರಿಸ್ತಿರುವ ನೀತಿ ತರಕಾರಿ ಅಂಗಡಿ ಸಬ್ಜಿ ಮಂಡೀಸ್ ಚೌಕಾಸಿಗೆ ಹೋಲಿಸಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಹೌದು, ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಶನದಲ್ಲಿ ಉನ್ನತ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಜ್ಞ ಗೌತಮ್ ಚಿಕರ್ಮನೆ ಡೊನಾಲ್ಡ್ ಟ್ರಂಪ್ ಅವರ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ ತಂತ್ರಗಳನ್ನು ಟೀಕಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಭಾರತದ ಮೇಲಿನ ಅವರ 50% ಸುಂಕವನ್ನು ತರ್ಕಬದ್ಧವಲ್ಲ, ಸರಿಯಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಹಾಗೆ ಇದು ದಾದಾಗಿರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಟ್ರಂಪ್ ಭಾರತವು ಯುರೋಪಿಯನ್ ಒಕ್ಕೂಟ, ಜಪಾನ್ ಮತ್ತು ವಿಯೆಟ್ನಾಂನಂತೆ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಗೆ ಟ್ರಂಪ್ಗೆ ತಲೆಬಾಗಿದಾರೋ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಕೂಡ ತಲೆಬಾಗ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಿರೀಕ್ಷಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಭಾರತ ಅಮೇರಿಕದ ನಿಯಮಗಳ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಅವರು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ನಿರ್ಧಾರಗಳಿಗೆ ತಲೆಬಾಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಿರಾಕರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಥವಾ ತಲೆಬಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ಅರ್ಥದಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಕರ್ಮನೆ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಟ್ರಂಪ್ ಅವರ ಸುಂಕದ ಒತ್ತಡವನ್ನು ಅವ್ರು ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಟ್ಯಾರಿಫ್ ಒತ್ತಡ ಸಬ್ಜಿ ಮಂಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತರಕಾರಿ ಅಂಗಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಚೌಕಾಶಿ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಲಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಕ್ರಮದ ಹಿಂದೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಲೆಕ್ಕಾಚಾರ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಥವಾ ಆರ್ಥಿಕವಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ತರ್ಕಬದ್ಧವಿಲ್ಲದಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ನೀತಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಭಾರತವು ಸುಂಕಗಳನ್ನು ಅಸಮರ್ಥನೀಯ ಮತ್ತು ಅಸಮಂಜಸ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೆಯೋದ್ರೊಂದಿಗೆ ಜಾಗತಿಕ ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ರಾಜತಾಂತ್ರಿಕತೆಯ ಸಮತೋಲನವನ್ನು ಮರುರೂಪಿಸಬಹುದಾದ ಒಂದು ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೇ ಈ ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯಾರಿಫ್ ಘರ್ಷಣೆ ಏನಿದೆ ಇದು ಭಾರತ ಮತ್ತು ಅಮೇರಿಕದ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ ಘರ್ಷಣೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ವೇದಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಇವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
Gautamji, first of all, thank you so much for giving us time for this interview and explainer on what these US tariffs are. Can you just, I will start straight away from my question. What are these tariffs and what will be its implication by and large, if you can give us some kind of analysis in short?
The question is so big that a short analysis is virtually impossible, but I'll try.
Yeah.
Trump imposed a 25% tariff on a very random basis, and I'll come to that. In addition, because we are buying Russian oil, he has imposed an additional penalty of 25%, taking our total tariffs on Indian goods on 70% of Indian goods to 50%. For instance, drugs are exempt. But we are all trying to find some logic in something which is completely illogical. It's very random. There is no mathematics to this. There is no logic. There is no cause and effect in this. So I'll come to that. For instance, he's imposing tariffs because he says the trade deficits are too high. Okay, so China's trade deficit with the US is $295 billion. India's is 46. So China is about 6 times more than India, and tariffs on China are 30%. The tariffs, the deficit of European Union is $226 billion, which is 5 times more than India, and the tariffs there are 15%. The deficit of Vietnam is $172 billion, which is 4 times India's. The deficit with Mexico, sorry, that was Mexico. Vietnam is a little less, 124, that is 3 times of India. So all these 4 countries have a much lower tariff put on them compared to India. Now let's come to the Russian oil, which is a penalty. India bought in 2024, which is the latest data available for me, although there are monthly changes that keep happening. In 2024, India bought 49 billion euros worth of Russian oil. How much did China buy? 78 billion euros. So it's almost double. And yet there is no penalty on China, it's only on India. In the same period, European Union bought 22 billion euros worth of gas. And we are not talking about coal and other things yet. How much penalty do they get? No. On the contrary, they are trying to impose sanctions. They are financing their own war. They are financing Russia against. If India is buying oil, is financing Russia's war, then EU financing Russia is equally financing the Russian war against Ukraine. With America, trade has grown by 20% ever since Trump has come, according to Putin.
And also recent revelation that they are trying to strike energy deals with them again.
That's right. So I think this is all hypocrisy. This is bullying. For people like us who function on policy parameters, on numbers, on analysis, we have no space left anymore. This is pure bullying, dadagiri. And how do you explain dadagiri to anybody? How do you explain why a bully is acting in this way? He will say, I want X. You give him X, he will move the gaze to Y. You give him Y, he will take it to Z. And we are not European Unions. We are not dependent on security. We can manage our own security. We can manage our own energy. We can manage our own markets. We can manage our own fertility. Europe cannot. And therefore, Europe has bent down. That humiliating photograph of all the leaders in White House, it's a shame. And I think that's partly because they are very focused on getting the deal right. They're very focused on their dependency. They're very focused on NATO. They're very focused on financing this war, fighting against Putin, etc., etc. India is not. To put India in the same basket and expect India to kneel down is, you're talking about two different cultures, two different stances. Many other countries in Asia have bent down. India has not, India will not deal with us.
But so the argument there is that China has a huge leverage because it's giving them rare earth and things like that. Similarly, EU is a big market, and as you said, security considerations are there. India don't seem to have that kind of leverage on US so that we can, hit back or similarly arm twist like these countries are doing.
I can agree with that in terms of goods, services, etc. I can agree with that. Even in terms of GDP, we are nowhere near China. But we are the fourth largest. So after China, there is Germany, and then there is India, maybe Japan in the middle. So are you trying to say that the GDP of 4 trillion has no leverage? Maybe that's your calculus. It is certainly not my calculus. Secondly, India's contribution to global growth. We saw the numbers yesterday, 7.8% GDP growth. This may or may not continue, but overall we are looking at a 6.5 to 7% GDP growth year on year, which translates into a nominal growth adding inflation to 8.5 to 9, maybe 10 if inflation rises or if growth increases. We are contributing 17% to global growth. Is that not leverage? Won't any country want to be part of this growth? If not, okay, we will handle our growth on our own. We will find new markets.
But now coming to that, how are we going to diversify? Because what I have learned in the basics of economics is that वो पानी की तरह होता है ट्रेड, जहाँ जगह होती है वहाँ बह जाता है. तो अभी तक वो डाइवर्सिफिकेशन नहीं हो पाया, अचानक कैसे होगा?
अचानक तो नहीं होगा, सिस्टमैटिकली चल रहा है काफ़ी सालों से. जैसे अभी हमने इंडिया यूके FTA साइन किया है. यहाँ पे आप समझ लो एक नई मार्केट, एक नई दिशा मिली है गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज एक्सचेंज की. एंड ऑफ द ईयर तक हमें EU के साथ FTA हो जाएगा. सारे EU के जो फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स आते हैं हमारे ORF में, सबका सब एक ही उनका लक्ष्य होता है कि भाई EU इंडिया FTA फटाफट साइन.
ये विन विन है
दोनों के लिए विन विन है. ठीक है, तो ये भी हो जाना चाहिए, मुझे लगता है हो जाएगा. फिर ईस्ट की तरफ अगर आप जाएं तो पूरी साउथ एशिया है, इंडोनेशिया है, ताइवान है, अलग अलग देश हैं. अगर आप फार वेस्ट की तरफ जाएं तो सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर में तो पूरा साउथ अमेरिका है. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि मार्केट्स नहीं है, अफ्रीका है बीच में. पूरा अफ्रीका को तो हमने कितने सालों से इन्वेस्ट किया है इसके अंदर. तो मार्केट्स बहुत हैं, मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी और हो रही है.